Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. British Chancellor George Osborne has praised Germany's humanitarian efforts at supporting and accommodating refugees from Syria. Speaking at a meeting with business leaders in Germany, Mr. Osborne stated that Britain and Germany remain the engine of growth in the region.
That we apply today, each in our own way, to the challenges of our age. And those values are on display in Germany today as you deal with the mass of refugees seeking shelter and sanctuary in your country. And for all the challenges that represents, the whole world has been impressed by your generosity and your hospitality to those fleeing conflict and seeking a better life. Now, Britain has a long tradition too of being a country that helps those in need. We are the home of Europe's most multi-ethnic and diverse society, and we have a rapidly growing population within our shores. We're the only major country in the world that will spend 0.7% of our national income on overseas development assistance this year. We're spending far more on aid in the region around Syria than any other European nation. Our military presence is greater there than any European nation. And because of this huge commitment of British resources and British military effort going in to help families on the Syrian border, it means that more of them will feel they do not need to make that treacherous journey across the Mediterranean in the first place. Now, we may not be part of Europe's Schengen area, and that is true to our island's story, but we will help you strengthen Europe's external borders in countries like Greece. For Britain and Germany are both countries that do not shirk our responsibilities, but are ready to shoulder them. And today we both have a responsibility also to show economic leadership in Europe. For there is a simple truth: we are Europe's engine for jobs and for growth. Since the economic crash 7 years ago, our two economies each expanded by the same 13%. The rest of Europe has grown by just 4%. We have together provided 2/3 of all the economic growth in Europe. And while we have together created over 3 million jobs have been lost across the rest of the European continent. And why have our two economies succeeded where too many others have struggled? I believe that's because we have risen to the challenge of reform. We both made difficult decisions to make our labour markets more flexible. Not so it's easy to fire people, but because we wanted it to be easy to hire people. We've both made difficult decisions to fix our public finances and to live within our means. This year you have achieved a budget surplus, and I will bring out the measures required to achieve that surplus in Britain. For we both understand that without sound finances there is no economic security. We're two countries that have reached out the hand of economic partnership to the new great emerging economies of Asia. You are by far and away the largest European exporter to China. We attract more Chinese investment into Britain than France and Italy and Germany put together. We're two societies that respect hard work, invest in science, embrace new technology. 4 of the world's top 10 universities are in Britain, and Germany tops the European League table for investment in research and development. This Anglo-German partnership is on display in the new Formula One champion, the ingenuity of a British driver, Lewis Hamilton, powered to success by a German Mercedes car. But I make this observation: the fastest car that Mercedes makes is the only car they make in Britain.
And we'll say goodbye to viewers on BBC Two. Here on the BBC News Channel, we'll continue to listen to George Osborne.
In both of our countries, We've seen other countries like Spain and Ireland rewarded for their reform efforts, and now we need to drive economic reform together across our continent in the European Union. I said the friendship between our two countries was based on shared values, and one of those values is that we don't insist on central uniformity, but instead we respect different histories and traditions and approaches. It's that respect for difference that has brought four nations together in one united kingdom. And it's the same respect for difference that united ancient kingdoms like Saxony and Bavaria, with city-states like Hamburg and Bremen, in the great success of the Bundesrepublik. And we should show the same respect to the difference of approaches our two countries make towards the European Union. Now, I have huge respect for the leadership Germany has shown, alongside other countries like France and Italy, and the countries of the Low Countries, in first creating the European Union, and now the effort you are making to ensure the common European borders work and the Eurozone is strong and a resilient currency area. And let me be absolutely clear, we want you to succeed in all these endeavours. It is hugely in Britain's interests, let alone Europe's interests, that you do.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister David Cameron has said he can guarantee an increase in personal tax allowance threshold to £11,000 by April 2016. Mr. Cameron retreated this at the last Prime Minister's question time, where Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn accused him of avoiding to disclose the full impact of the tax credit cut on working people.
Last week, I asked the Prime Minister the same question 6 times, Mr. Speaker, and he couldn't answer. He's now had a week to think about it. I want to ask him one more time. Can he guarantee that next April nobody is going to be worse off as a result of cuts to working tax credits?
Let me be absolutely clear with the honourable gentleman. What I can guarantee next April is there will be an £11,000 personal allowance, so you can earn £11,000 before you pay tax. What I can guarantee is there will be a national living wage at £7.20, giving the lowest paid in our country a £20 a week pay rise compared with the election next year. Now, on the issue of tax credits, we suffered the defeat in the House of Lords, so we've taken the proposals away. We are looking at them. We will come forward with new proposals in the autumn statement, and at that point, in exact time, I'll be able to answer his question. Now, if he wants to spend the next 5 questions asking it all over again, I'm sure he'll find that it is very entertaining and interesting. How it fits with the new politics, I'm not quite sure. But over to you.
Mr. Speaker, this isn't about entertainment. This is about... This is not funny for people who are desperately worried about what's going to happen next April. If the Prime Minister won't listen to the questions I put, won't listen to the questions that are put by the public, then perhaps the Prime Minister will listen to a question that was raised by his honourable friend, the member for Brigham Goole, who last week, concerning tax credit changes, said, and I quote, that changes cannot go ahead next April and that any mitigation should be full mitigation. What's the Prime Minister's answer to his friend?
It's very much the same answer that I gave to him. In 3 weeks' time, we will announce our proposals and he will be able to see what we'll do to deliver the high pay, low tax, lower welfare economy we want to see. That's what we need in our country. We're cutting people's taxes, we're increasing people's pay, but we also believe it's right to reform welfare. So he'll have his answer in 3 weeks' time, but meantime he has to think about this. If we don't reform welfare, how are we going to fund the police service that we're talking about today? How are we going to fund the health service that we could be talking about today? How are we going to pay for the defence forces that we're talking about today? The honourable gentleman has been completely consistent. He's opposed every single reform to welfare that has ever come forward. If we'd listened to him, you'd still have families in London getting £100,000 a year in housing benefit. So the answer to the question is you'll find out in 3 weeks' time. Carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that the Prime Minister makes choices, and he's made a choice concerning working tax credits which hasn't worked very well so far. But he must be aware. I give him an example. A serving soldier, a private in the army with 2 children and a partner, would lose over £2,000 next April. I ask a question.
The questions will be heard, and the answers will be heard. Simple as that. Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Surely that is the whole point of our Parliament, that we're able to put questions to those in authority. And so I have a question from... I have a question from Kieran, a veteran of the First Gulf War. His family are set to lose out, and he writes, "It's a worry to the family. There's fear and trepidation about whether we're going to be able to get by." And he asks, is this how the government treats veterans of the armed services?
Well, first of all, let me take the case of the serving soldier. First of all, many soldiers, indeed I think all soldiers, will benefit from the £11,000 personal allowance that comes in next year. That means they'll be able to earn more money before they even start paying taxes. Serving soldiers that have children will benefit from the 30 hours of childcare. And of course, serving soldiers and others will be able to see our proposals on tax credits in exactly 3 weeks' time. But what I would say to the serving soldier is that he is now dealing with an opposition party, the leader of which said he couldn't see any use for UK forces anywhere in the world at any time. That serving soldier wouldn't have a job if the honourable gentleman ever got anywhere near power.
Brussels has indicated its resolve to resettle refugees from Syria and other countries amid strong opposition from some members. The fourth set of refugees from Greece is being relocated to other European Union countries by the European Union under the plan of the Union to deal with the migrant crisis.
After their flight from war, a ticket to a new life in Europe, 30 Syrian and Iraqi refugees were flown Wednesday from Athens to Luxembourg. Among those bidding them farewell was the President of the EU Parliament, Martin Schulz.
When I saw the happiness and the lucky faces of the children, I thought this is exactly what we have to do.
Schulz called on all EU states to take part in the relocation plan, which envisages 160,000 refugees being shared across the EU. But there has been opposition from several eastern member states.
It's not really for Martin Schulz to say what is fine and what is not fine, because it's really for national governments. And we saw that although there was a majority to agree to the relocation scheme, a number of governments protested, and a number of governments voted very unwillingly.
Very happy. The final leg of the journey to Luxembourg was made by bus. Many refugees said they knew little about their future home.
Aleppo, Syria. I'm from Aleppo, Syria.
And where are you going now?
Luxembourg.
Are you happy?
Yeah.
On the Greek islands, thousands more migrants continue to arrive every day. A strike by ferry workers left many stranded at the dockside in Lesbos Wednesday.
With the 30 refugees taken from Greece to Luxembourg, this now takes us to a total of 116. So still many, many thousands off the target, and that's not even to mention addressing the broader crisis.
Greece is at the front line of that crisis. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras had this warning.
Να μην ενθαρρύνουμε χερσαίες ή θαλάσσιες ανεξέλεγκτες με τον κίνδυνο απώλειας ανθρώπινων ζώων προσφυγικές ροές από την Τουρκία προς την υπόλοιπη Ευρώπη.
For the vast majority of migrants, the journey to a new life in Europe is increasingly dangerous. Temperatures in the transit Balkan countries are falling fast. Aid agencies warn that thousands of lives will soon be at risk.
The U.S. President Barack Obama says America spends $80 billion annually on 2.2 million prison inmates in the country. President Obama said that the U.S. criminal justice system must be reformed to make it fairer, smarter, and more effective.
Today, there are 2.2 million people behind bars in America, and millions more on parole or probation. Every year, we spend $80 billion in taxpayer dollars to keep people incarcerated. Many are nonviolent offenders serving unnecessarily long sentences. I believe we can disrupt the pipeline from underfunded schools to overcrowded jails. I believe we can address the disparities in the application of criminal justice, from arrest rates to sentencing to incarceration. And I believe we can help those who have served their time and earned a second chance get the support they need to become productive members of society. That's why over the course of this year, I've been talking to folks around the country about reforming our criminal justice system to make it smarter, fairer, and more effective. In February, I sat down in the Oval Office with police officers from across the country. In the spring, I met with police officers and young people in Camden, New Jersey, where they're using community policing and data to drive down crime. Over the summer, I visited a prison in Oklahoma to talk with inmates and correction officers about rehabilitating prisoners and preventing more people from ending up there in the first place. 2 weeks ago, I visited West Virginia to meet with families battling prescription drug and heroin abuse, as well as people who are working on new solutions for treatment and rehabilitation. Last week, I traveled to Chicago to thank police chiefs from across the country for all that their officers do to protect Americans, to make sure they get the resources they need to get the job done, and to call for common sense gun safety reforms that would make officers and their communities safer. We know that having millions of people in the criminal justice system without any ability to find a job after release is unsustainable. It's bad for communities, and it's bad for our economy. So on Monday, I'll travel to Newark, New Jersey to highlight efforts to help Americans who've paid their debt to society reintegrate back into their communities. Everyone has a role to play, from businesses that are hiring ex-offenders to philanthropies that are supporting education and training programs. And I'll keep working with people in both parties to get criminal justice reform bills to my desk, including a bipartisan bill that would reduce mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders and reward prisoners with shorter sentences if they complete programs that make them less likely to commit a repeat offense. There's a reason good people across the country are coming together to reform our criminal justice system. Because it's not about politics. It's about whether we as a nation live up to our founding ideal of liberty and justice for all. And working together, we can make sure that we do.
Britain says it will take extra and enhanced security measures on flights coming into the UK following the growing fears that the Russian civilian plane that crashed on the Sinai Peninsula might have been brought down by an explosive. Russia has maintained that an external influence was responsible for the crash of the plane. All 224 people on board the flight were killed.
An extensive search of the 30 square kilometer area around the crash site continued Tuesday without locating more victims' bodies, while investigators analyzed the plane's voice and data recorders to try to determine the cause of the crash. Islamic State has claimed responsibility for downing the Metrojet liner in retaliation for Russia's military involvement in Syria. Egyptian authorities have ruled out the possibility that the aircraft was hit by a missile. Instead, there are growing suspicions that a bomb was planted on the plane.
We cannot categorically say why the Russian jet crashed, but we have become concerned that the plane may well have been brought down as a result of an explosive device.
Like Russia, Britain also has direct flights to the Egyptian resort and is now taking steps to ensure the safety of its travelers.
As a precautionary measure, we've decided that flights due to leave Sharm el-Sheikh this evening for the UK will be delayed, and that will allow us time to ensure that the right security measures are in place.
The United States does not have direct flights to the Sinai area. Still, U.S. authorities have warned civil aviation operators twice in the past year to avoid flying over or near the peninsula.
The airport in question at Sharm el-Sheikh is in fact not the last point of departure into the United States for any airline, including foreign airlines that do operate in the Sinai Peninsula. If it were the last point of departure for any aircraft operating regularly in the United States, there would be a whole set of security regulations that would be imposed to ensure the safety of the traveling public.
U.S. officials are now privately telling reporters it is highly possible that a bomb brought down the Russian passenger jet.
And with that, so we conclude the news roundup for this week. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Tunde Alabi. Do have a very good week ahead of you. Bye. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.